Funny thing about identity, people spend their whole lives trying to find it in mirrors made by others. They wear masks that fit the crowd, they change colors to match the room, and they call that being real. But deep down, they know something's missing. It's not that they don't know who they are, it's that they've forgotten who they were before the world told them who to be. See, the system loves a person who's lost, because lost people are easy to lead, easy to sell, too easy to break. But when you start remembering your own reflection, the one that isn't built from opinions or approval, things start to shake. The world gets nervous when someone stops pretending. Because once you know who you are, no one can tell you what you're worth. They want you confused. That's the whole trick. Keep you guessing about who you are, what you should be, where you belong. Make you chase answers in mirrors that were never meant to show your face. The world doesn't need you to know yourself. It needs you to need it. Because when you don't know who you are, you'll buy anything, believe anything, follow anyone who sounds certain enough. Confusion is the oldest currency. They use it to keep you spending your life trying to fill a hole they dug in your mind. And the funny part, you think you're making choices, but most of them were already made for you long before you even started thinking. From the moment you were born, they started writing your name in ink that wasn't yours, telling you what's normal, what's success, what's failure, what's love, what's wrong. Every voice, every ad, every screen whispering the same thing. Be more, but not too much. Stand out, but don't step out of line. It's genius, really. They build a maze and call it freedom. They tell you to find yourself while selling you the directions. And you keep walking in circles, thinking the exit's just a little further if you work harder, if you buy more, if you try to fit one more expectation. You're not lost. You're trapped in a design that was never meant to set you free. You can see it everywhere. People living like ghosts in bodies they don't even recognize. Smiling in photos, dying in silence. Acting like everything's fine when deep down something's rotting. The system loves that. It feeds on your pretending. The moment you try to look deeper, to peel back the layers, it distracts you, throws noise your way, scrolls, likes, trends, opinions, keeps your mind so busy you forget to feel. Because stillness is dangerous. In the quiet, truth starts to whisper, and they can't afford for you to hear that voice. There's power in confusion, just not yours. They profit off your hesitation, your self-doubt, your constant need for approval. You buy what they tell you will make you whole. You post what they say will make you seen. You chase what they define as happiness. All the while, you're working harder to live someone else's dream, while yours collects dust in the back of your mind. You think you're free because you can choose between 1,000 distractions. But none of them point toward you. They point away. Away from your core, your truth, your purpose. Because a person who knows who they are can't be sold, can't be controlled, can't be owned. The irony is, the more you chase identity, the further you get from it. Because who you are isn't something you find. It's something you remember. The real you has always been there, underneath the noise, beneath the masks, buried under layers of conditioning. But you've been trained to look everywhere except inward. They say look at the influencers, the idols, the trends. Follow them, copy them, become them. Because the moment you start remembering, the whole game falls apart. The power shifts, the control slips, and they can't have that. Ever notice how people who truly know themselves make others uncomfortable? They don't play by the rules. They don't need validation. They don't flinch when the world disagrees. Because once you know who you are, you stop negotiating your worth. You stop begging for seats at tables you could flip over with one hand. That kind of self-awareness is terrifying to a system built on insecurity. It's like holding a mirror up to the lie, and no one likes what they see. You want to know why confusion feels so heavy? Because it's not natural. You were never meant to doubt your own voice. You were born with clarity, but they taught you to question it. Every ad, every comparison, every failure drilled one message into your head. You're not enough. And you believed it. That belief became a cage. And now every thought that tries to escape gets pulled back in. But here's the thing. They can't take your identity. They can only convince you to forget it. They'll tell you who to be, and they'll call it advice. They'll label you when you don't fit, and they'll call it diagnosis. They'll keep you chasing acceptance so you never stop to realize you were already complete before they told you otherwise. Confusion isn't a flaw, it's a weapon used against you. They create the storm, then sell you the umbrella. They break your sense of self, then offer to fix it for a price. That's the cycle. Keep you lost, then charge you for the map. The truth is, the second you stop running from yourself, everything they built to trap you starts to crumble. When you stop needing their approval, you become dangerous. Because they can't scare you with rejection when you already know who you are. They can't control you with money when you no longer measure worth in numbers. They can't manipulate you with fear when you've seen the game for what it is. They lose the leash the moment you wake up. The world doesn't fear the loud. It fears the aware. The ones who can look in the mirror and see past the reflection. The ones who've stopped apologizing for being different. The ones who know their name doesn't need a label. Their worth doesn't need a price tag. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to break patterns. But to do that, you have to remember what they tried to make you forget. Who you are beneath everything they told you to be. It's strange, isn't it? How people keep saying they're trying to find themselves, like they're a missing wallet or a lost key, as if who they are is hiding somewhere out there, waiting to be discovered. But that's the lie. They made you believe you were lost, so they could sell you directions. Identity isn't something you find. It's something you remember. You were born with it. But the world covered it up layer by layer, lie by lie, until you couldn't recognize your own reflection anymore. You've been walking around carrying the truth the whole time, just buried beneath all the noise they fed you. You ever notice how children know who they are before anyone tells them? They laugh without needing permission. They cry without shame. They dream without boundaries. That's what real identity looks like. Raw, honest, untouched. But then the world gets its hands on them, starts whispering rules. Act like this. Talk like that. Don't do that. People will think you're weird. Every correction, every label, every judgment slowly erases the original design. Until one day, they're not living. They're performing. They become characters in someone else's script, trying to please an audience that never claps loud enough. And that's the tragedy of it all. You start believing that identity is something earned, something you prove, something you achieve after you've fit enough molds, met enough standards, and silenced enough of yourself. But you can't prove what already is. You can't earn what you were born with. The real you doesn't need validation. It needs permission to exist. But that's what they took from you. They didn't steal your identity. They convinced you to hide it. They told you to play small, to blend in, to be normal. Because normal is predictable, and predictable is easy to control. The world's greatest fear is a person who remembers themselves. Because when you do, you stop playing their game. You stop buying things to fill a void that never existed. You stop begging for acceptance from people who don't even accept themselves. You stop waiting for someone to tell you you're enough, because you finally realize you always were. And that's when the cracks start to show. The illusions begin to break. Because everything they've built relies on your forgetfulness. The moment you remember, you become untouchable. See, remembering isn't always peaceful. It's painful. Because to remember who you are, you have to strip away who you've been pretending to be. You have to face the parts of you that were silenced, shamed, rejected. The ones you buried just to be liked, just to be accepted. But here's the truth. Those pieces weren't your weakness. They were your power. You just learned to fear them because they didn't fit into the world's design. They called you too emotional, too intense, too different. But those too much parts, that's where your fire lives. That's where your purpose breathes. You don't find yourself by adding more. You remember yourself by subtracting what's not real. Every false identity, every fake smile, every borrowed dream. You peel it away until all that's left is what was always there. That's why so many people never do it. Because remembering takes courage. It takes facing the truth that maybe your whole life was built on someone else's idea of who you should be. And the moment that truth hits, you can't go back to pretending. You can't unsee it. You either keep playing the role, or you burn the script. The ones who remember don't fit anywhere, and that's the beauty of it. They walk differently. They talk differently. There's something in their eyes. Clarity, calm, danger. Because they're no longer controlled by fear or doubt. They've seen the illusion and walked through it. People don't understand them, so they label them as arrogant or crazy. but that's just projection. The world calls you crazy when you refuse to stay asleep. You want to know how you start remembering. Stop running from silence. That's where the truth hides. Not in the noise, not in the praise, not in the chaos. Just silence. Because when everything gets quiet, all the fake layers start to fall away. You'll hear your real voice again. The one that's been whispering under the noise all this time. The one that doesn't need followers, doesn't need applause, doesn't need validation. Just space. Space to exist, space to breathe, space to be. The sad thing is, most people will never get there. They'll keep looking outward, chasing things that were never meant to fill the space inside. They'll keep asking the world for permission to be themselves, waiting for a sign that will never come. Because remembering doesn't come from outside approval. It comes from the moment you decide to stop pretending. The second you realize you don't need to find anything because you were never lost. You were just buried under a lifetime of other people's expectations. You were never meant to be a copy, never meant to blend in. You were meant to be a living contradiction, loud and quiet, kind and fierce, broken and unbreakable. The ones who remember that are rare, and that's why they shine differently. Not because they're perfect, but because they're real. And in a world built on imitation, nothing is more dangerous than someone who remembers exactly who they are. You ever notice how masks are easier to wear than faces? People slip them on every morning without thinking. Smile here, nod there, agree when they disagree, laugh when they're dying inside. They wear so many masks they forget which one hides the real them. But the problem with masks is, after a while, they start to fuse with your skin. You wear them for so long that, when you finally try to take them off, it hurts. You bleed. And that's why most people never do it. They'd rather keep pretending than face the pain of remembering who they were before the world told them to act. See, pretending is safe. It's predictable. You fit in, you get praised, you belong. But deep down, you know it's fake. You know every compliment, every handshake, every "you're doing great" isn't meant for you. It's meant for the version you built to survive. And that version, it's hollow, it's fragile. One wrong move, one honest moment, and it all cracks. You can feel it sometimes, can't you? That pressure behind your smile, that tightness in your chest, when you're around people who only know your mask. You want to scream to tell them, "This isn't me." But you don't. Because what if they don't like the real you? What if they walk away? So you stay silent, and the silence eats you alive. The world rewards actors, not truth tellers. It loves performance, not honesty. You show your pain, they call you weak. You show your strength, they call you arrogant. You can't win because the game was never built for truth. That's the joke. They want you to blend in because blending in keeps you manageable. As long as you wear the mask, you'll keep chasing approval. And as long as you're chasing approval, you'll never realize you were born with everything you've been begging for. The mask starts small. A lie here, a little pretending there. You tell yourself it's temporary, that you're just playing along. But before you know it, you're knee deep in a character you don't even like. You adjust your tone, your walk, your words, all to match what people expect from you. And then, one day, you catch yourself in the mirror and can't recognize the reflection. That's when it hits you. The scariest part isn't that you lost yourself. It's that you handed yourself over willingly. Most people think freedom means doing whatever you want. But real freedom, it's being yourself in a world that profits from your pretending. It's walking into a room and not needing to shrink. It's saying what you mean without checking if it's too much. It's standing alone and not flinching when the silence gets loud. That's freedom. And it scares the hell out of people. Because when you stop wearing the mask, you remind everyone still wearing theirs that they're living a lie. The moment you start being real, the crowd disappears. Funny how that works. People love you when you're comfortable, predictable, easy to digest. But the moment you show them your truth, the raw, unfiltered, messy parts, they scatter. They can't handle it because truth exposes their own pretending. They'll call you cold, rude, different, too intense. But that's not an insult. It's a confession. What they're really saying is, "You're everything I wish I had the courage to be." Pretending feels safe, but it's expensive. Every day you wear that mask, you pay with a little more of your soul. You trade authenticity for acceptance, and the rate only gets higher. That's why people feel so empty, even when everything looks perfect. They've spent their lives performing roles they never auditioned for. They've built empires on false foundations. And one day, all it takes is a small crack, a failure, a heartbreak, a quiet moment, and the whole act collapses. You know what's funny? When you finally take off the mask, you realize no one was really looking anyway. Everyone's too busy wearing their own to notice yours. All that effort to impress, all that fear of rejection. It was all an illusion. The people who truly matter won't need you to perform. They'll recognize you without the costume. Because their eyes aren't trained by the world, they're trained by truth. The world will tell you to be yourself, but punish you when you actually do. That's why you have to stop waiting for permission. Because no one's going to come and say, "All right, now it's safe to be real." It'll never be safe. Authenticity has always been rebellion. But that's where your power lies, in the danger of it. Every mask you drop makes you harder to control. Every truth you speak makes the lie weaker. Every time you choose to show up as yourself, you break another chain the world built to keep you small. They'll call you different, and they'll be right. Because realness is rare now. It's a currency most people can't afford. But the ones who carry it, they shine differently. They don't need to announce it. They don't need applause. They just exist. And that's enough to shake the whole room. Because when you finally stop pretending, you don't just free yourself. You start to remind others what it looks like to live without fear. And once that happens, the masks start falling one by one. and suddenly the world doesn't look so fake anymore. You ever notice how the world loves noise? Everyone's running, chasing, scrolling, talking, but almost no one's listening. No one's still. Because silence is dangerous. In silence, truth starts to whisper, and the last thing they want is for you to hear it. That's why they keep you moving, keep you busy, keep your head filled with static. The second you slow down, you might start to notice the change. You might start asking questions. You might start seeing. And once you see, you can't unsee. Movement without direction, that's the trick. They tell you to keep going, keep grinding, keep hustling, like that's the answer. But they never tell you where all that motion leads. Because it's not supposed to lead anywhere. It's supposed to exhaust you. Wear you down until you don't have the energy to think. They disguise chaos as ambition, distraction as purpose. They tell you to keep moving, so you won't notice you're running in circles. That's how they trap you, with noise. Not bars, not walls, noise. You've seen them. The ones who can't sit still for more than a minute. Always checking their phone, refreshing, posting, reacting. They think they're connected, but they're addicted. They mistake attention for validation, likes for love, motion for meaning. They've forgotten how to just be. And the worst part, they don't even realize it. They think they're living, but really, they're running from silence. Because silence feels like confrontation. It forces them to meet themselves, and most people are terrified of that meeting. The funny part is, the world calls that kind of chaos normal. They applaud it. You're busy. Good. You're stressed. You must be working hard. You're burnt out. That's success. They make exhaustion look noble. They make peace look lazy. So, you keep moving, keep talking, keep producing, thinking one day you'll reach a place where the noise stops on its own. But it never does. The noise only stops when you do. Stillness doesn't mean weakness. It means control. The kind of control that scares people. Because when you're still, you're not reacting. You're observing. You're not caught in the chaos. You're studying it. That's when the truth becomes clear. You start to see who's real, who's pretending, what matters, what doesn't. The silence gives you perspective the noise could never offer. That's why those who control the world fear quiet minds. Quiet minds are dangerous. They can't be manipulated. You know what's ironic? The ones who move the most are often going nowhere. They mistake activity for progress, and they can't tell the difference. But the ones who pause, who take a breath, who dare to sit in the discomfort of stillness, they're the ones who rise above it. Because stillness doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the right thing at the right time. It's strategy. It's restraint. It's power disguised as peace. They'll mock you for slowing down. They'll say you're falling behind. They'll call you lazy, unfocused, unmotivated. But that's only because they can't stand to see someone who isn't caught in the same trap. Your calm makes their chaos louder. Your patience exposes their panic. When you stop running, they start to question why they're still sprinting. and they don't like the answer. Because deep down, they know they're not running toward something. They're running away from themselves. The world's addicted to movement because it's terrified of reflection. Reflection shows cracks. Reflection shows lies. Reflection shows the truth about how hollow most of this noise really is. That's why silence is treated like a threat. They'll do anything to fill it. Music, scrolling, talking, anything to drown out that inner voice that keeps asking, is this really it? Because once that question gets too loud, everything starts to unravel. The job, the friends, the habits, the identity, it all starts to look fake. And you can't unhear that kind of truth. Stillness is rebellion. In a world built on distraction, calm is chaos. Because when you stop reacting, you start deciding. You start choosing what deserves your energy instead of handing it away for free. You stop being controlled by urgency, comparison, and fear. You start realizing how much of your life was spent trying to prove something to people who weren't even watching. Stillness gives you that clarity. It shows you the difference between movement and progress, between noise and purpose. Most people won't understand that kind of peace. They'll call it detachment, arrogance, indifference. But that's because they've confused chaos with passion. They think being loud means being alive. They think slowing down means giving up. But when you've been trapped in noise long enough, silence starts to sound like freedom. That's when you start hearing things others can't. The truth, the patterns, the whispers of purpose under all the static. And that's when everything changes. Stillness is where strength hides. It's not the flash, not the noise, not the show. It's quiet, controlled, focused. It's the space between reactions where clarity lives. The world will try to pull you back into motion, tempt you with distractions, bait you with urgency. But once you've tasted peace, noise becomes unbearable. Once you've learned how to stand still in a storm, you stop fearing the thunder. Because you realize you were never supposed to move with the chaos. You were meant to stand in the middle of it and see everything for what it really is.